The certified letter came on a Tuesday morning. It landed on my apartment door with a soft thump while I was practicing what I would say in a big meeting about money at work. I almost didn't look at it because I was so focused on remembering all the numbers that could help me get a promotion. Almost. But my name was on the clear window of the envelope. Celine Vera, written in big black letters that felt scary. There was no return address, only a small logo of a law office. I carefully opened the envelope, holding my coffee in the other hand. Inside was a paper that made my heart stop. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? The letter said that my parents, Alaric and Isolde Vera, wanted me to pay them 40% of all the money I earn from now on. They said it was to pay back money they gave me on May 15, 2016. I dropped my coffee cup. It shattered on the kitchen floor. Hot coffee spilled on my feet, but I barely felt it. What the heck? I whispered to the empty kitchen. My heart was beating so fast. I looked at the letter again, trying to understand. Financial investment. Verbal contract. Legally binding agreement. Family obligation. Every word felt like a punch to my stomach. The $20,000 check my parents gave me for college, it wasn't just a gift? They said it was a gift, but now it was apparently a contract. A contract I never signed. A contract that wanted almost half my money forever. I sat down on the floor, still holding the paper, my hands shaking. Memories came back to me. I remembered the dinner at Pietro's, my dad's Italian restaurant in Reno. The table had a white cloth with red wine stains. My mom wore her pearl necklace, catching the light as she smiled at me. I held my college acceptance letter, my hands sweaty. My dad had said, "We have something for you, sweetheart." He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was the check for $20,000. More money than I've ever seen, I remembered thinking. "No strings attached," my mom said, squeezing my hand. "We're proud of you. This is just to help your future." Investment. The word sounded different now, 7 years later, as I sat among broken coffee cups and shards of ceramic. I picked up my phone and called my parents. Surprisingly, my voice was steady when my mom answered. "I just got a letter from your lawyer about the college money," I said. There was a pause. "We've been patient, Celine. You've been making good money for years now," she said. "It was a gift," I said, my hands tightening on the phone. "You said no strings attached." "We raised you," my mom said. Her voice sounded hard now. "Everything you have is because of us." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I worked through college. I paid my loans myself. That check barely covered anything." "You're being selfish," I said. My mom said, "Your brother Caius needs help with his art career. He's struggling." "Ah, that's it. My little brother." "This isn't about Caius," I said, though we both knew it was. "Family takes care of family," she said. "What's yours is ours. That's how it works." Her words hit me like a hammer. That's how it always worked in our family. My success was never really mine. Everything I worked for, college, grades, my first promotion, was shared. Even now, my paycheck. I looked down at the broken mug, the coffee stains, the letter demanding 40% of everything I earn. I needed to leave. I hung up. I cleaned up the mess carefully. Something inside me had changed. The family that should protect me was now trying to take everything from me, and I didn't want to let them. 3 days later, I needed proof that the $20,000 was a gift. I looked through old emails. I wanted proof, not therapy. But what I found made me sick. An email from my dad to my mom, 2 weeks before giving me the money. Celine's college fund. Return on investment, it said. It took forever to load, like my laptop didn't want to show it. The email said they planned it. It was never just a gift. They called it an investment, planning to get money back once I made real money. My mom replied, "Better to call it a gift until she's earning. The return will be worth it." I sat on the couch, shaking. They planned this 7 years ago. They were waiting for me to earn enough so they could take it. The phone rang. Their number. I didn't answer. 2 days later, I was at their dining room in Reno. The same cherry table where they celebrated my college acceptance was now covered in papers. Mom and Dad stood. I sat. Power was clear. Caius was in the corner, pretending to draw, smirking when he thought I wasn't looking. Dad slid a paper toward me. "Your signature shows what we've always understood." I looked at the paper. It said it was from today, but made it sound like an agreement from 7 years ago. I never agreed. Mom leaned forward, her necklace catching the light again. "When family helps family, repayment is assumed. That's how we raised you. You said no strings attached." I said, voice shaking but stronger than I felt. Families don't need written contracts, Dad said. Your word should be enough. My word. I never agreed to pay 40% of everything I earn. You accepted the money, Mom said. Caius finally looked up. Some of us need support more than others, he said casually, looking at our parents with a knowing glance. On the drive back to my hotel, the threats began. Mom's voice was sweet but fake. If you make us go to court, it will affect your credit and reputation. Are you threatening me? I asked. We're just telling you the consequences, Dad said. They said they might contact my boss about family resources. I felt sick. You wouldn't. Family takes care of family, Mom said again. Doubts crept in. Did I misunderstand? Did I agree somewhere? Memory can trick you. That night, I dumped my emergency folder on the hotel bed. Passport, birth certificate, vaccination papers, and my college acceptance card. The card had my mom's handwriting on the back. Congratulations, sweetheart. No payback needed. Just make us proud. Love, Mom and Dad. Relief and anger hit me at the same time. They had lied in writing. Driving back to Seattle, I wondered if I should just pay the $20,000 to end the nightmare or fight in court, knowing it could ruin our relationship. 2 days later, my phone buzzed in a work meeting. An unknown number. The fourth one today. I silenced it and focused on the numbers on the projection screen. My boss, Theron, noticed. Everything okay? He asked after the meeting. Of course, I said, forcing a smile. Theron shifted. Your parents called me yesterday. They said you were having money problems. Cold fear spread in my chest. My parents called my boss? HR had also flagged a family contract, since I was being considered for a promotion. Lyra from accounting whispered that my brother Caius had called twice about a family emergency. I told her to take a message. That night, my apartment felt like a battlefield. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. I lay awake, thinking of what else they could do, who else they could call, imagining every possibility. I could not sleep. My mind was spinning, thinking of every little thing I had done over the years that could be twisted into proof for their plan. Every birthday gift I had received. Every help I had given my brother. Every meal I had cooked. Could they claim I owed them for that too? I remembered all the small things they had said over the years. You're lucky we helped you. Don't forget who made this possible. Every compliment had a shadow. Every proud of you had a hidden message. I realized now that even love had a price tag attached in their eyes. I got up and walked to the window. Seattle's streets were quiet. The sky was turning dark. I could see my reflection in the glass, pale, tired, angry. My apartment felt like a cage built by people who were supposed to care about me the most. I thought of my college days. The hard work. The late nights studying. The jobs I worked to make ends meet. The money I had earned myself. All of it felt stolen, even though it wasn't. Even though it was mine. I knew I had to make a choice. Give in to them. Pay back the $20,000 and pretend everything was fine? Or fight them, knowing it could change our family forever? The next day, I started looking at my finances carefully. I made a list of all the money I had earned since graduation. All the bills I had paid. All the savings I had built. I wanted to know exactly what they were asking for, and how it would change my life. Then I thought about my brother. Caius. What if he really did need help? Did I owe it to him, even if my parents were using him as a reason? I had to be smart. I had to separate what was real from what was manipulation. I spent hours writing down everything. The emails, the check, the card, the conversations. I needed proof. Proof that this was never a gift. Proof that I never agreed to anything. Proof that I had a right to keep what I earned. By the time evening came, my apartment was covered in papers. It felt messy, but it was better than letting my thoughts swirl in my head. I had a plan. Not a full plan yet, but a start. I called a lawyer. I explained everything, showing them the emails and the card. The lawyer shook their head. This is complicated, but you have evidence. You are not helpless. You have a strong case if this goes to court. Hearing that gave me some hope. For the first time since the letter arrived, I felt a small spark of control. I could fight. I could protect myself. I could take a stand. The next few days were tense. I avoided my parents' calls. I didn't answer any unknown numbers. I focused on my work, because losing the promotion now would only give them more power. At night, I went through every memory of my childhood, looking for more clues. Every word they said, every action they took. I tried to separate love from control. It was hard, painful, but necessary. Finally, I realized something important. My life was mine. My work, my money, my success, those were my own. No one, not even family, could take that away if I didn't let them. I made a promise to myself. I would fight this. I would not give in to manipulation. I would protect what was rightfully mine, even if it meant standing up to the people I loved most. I slept that night a little easier. Still worried. Still angry. But stronger. Ready. Because sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. And sometimes you are the only one who can protect yourself. The next morning, I woke up and went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror and saw shadows under my eyes. They were dark like little clouds, and no amount of concealer could hide them. I stared at my reflection. The person looking back at me seemed familiar, but smaller somehow, like the woman I used to know had been squeezed and made tiny. My hands shook a little as I held the mascara wand. I put it on carefully, trying to make my eyes look awake. I could feel my heart pounding, even though I tried to pretend everything was normal. At lunch, I went to a small store and bought a new notebook. It had a soft leather cover and felt special in my hands. I opened it and made different sections. One for phone calls, one for emails, and one for things people said that could help me remember important details. I wanted everything to be organized so I wouldn't forget anything. I started with the phone calls. I wrote down exactly what Theron had said, word for word, even if my hand started to hurt. Then I took all the emails my parents had sent me and put them in a special folder. I screenshot text messages and saved voicemails too. Slowly, page by page, I was collecting proof that someone was trying to make my life difficult on purpose. It felt like building a fortress of papers and words around myself, protecting me from the storm outside. 3 weeks passed after the scary letter arrived. I didn't even notice the announcement for the promotion I had been hoping for. Instead, I had to go to an important meeting with the HR person at work. I explained carefully that no, I had never signed any money agreement with my parents, and yes, I had papers showing the college money was a gift, not a loan. The HR person spoke calmly. The promotion needs someone without complications, they said. I nodded and smiled like I was supposed to, but inside I felt something breaking. Something important inside me felt like it was crumbling. As I walked home in the rain, water soaked through my thin jacket. I didn't try to hurry. The wetness outside seemed to match the wetness inside me. The sadness and cold that had settled in my bones ever since the letter arrived. I stopped answering phone calls from numbers I didn't know. I left my personal email unread for days. My shoulders stayed tight, waiting for the next problem, always ready for something bad to happen. When I reached my apartment, there was a wicker basket waiting by the door. I opened it and saw warm sourdough bread and homemade strawberry jam. Next to them was a handwritten note. Some families are born, others are chosen. You are welcome at my table anytime. Eudora. Eudora was my elderly neighbor from 4B. She watered my plants when I went on trips, remembered my birthday with butter cookies, and never asked for anything in return. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. I held the basket close to me as I brought it inside. The simple act of kindness felt almost too big to handle after all the recent cruelty. It was like a little light had come into my world, warming the cold place inside me. That night, I set up my laptop for the dreaded weekly video call with my parents. When they appeared on screen, they looked perfect. Dad's shirt was pressed and neat, and Mom's makeup looked flawless. The living room behind them looked the same as always. But I knew everything had changed. HR had called them. Dad began speaking immediately. We're taking this seriously, he said. They should, I said, my voice steady. You're interfering with my job. Mom's eyes narrowed. We wouldn't need to do this if you just fulfilled your obligations, she said. What obligations? I asked, my heart thumping. A gift you now call a loan with impossible rules? You've always been selfish, Dad said, leaning closer to the camera. Your brother needs that money more than you do. I knew that word, selfish. They had used it my whole life whenever I made choices for myself. Like when I went to college far away, focused on my career, or refused to give Caius money for his many failed businesses. This isn't about Caius, I said, my voice calm but strong. This is about control. For a long moment, there was silence. Then Mom said quietly, We've supported you your entire life. Suddenly I understood. Their support had never been unconditional. It had been like a contract, something they could use to control me, something they could demand back whenever they wanted. I need to go, I said, ending the call before they could respond. The next morning, Eudora knocked on my door again. My grandson Oren is visiting this weekend, she said. He's a lawyer and thought you might like to join us for Sunday dinner. 2 days later, Lyra from work came to my desk. That Caius guy called again, she said without hesitation. He said you're having a breakdown and that the company should be worried about your position. I told him you're the most stable person here and hung up. Family can be the worst sometimes. With each small kindness from others, I felt a little stronger. I wrote Eudora's note and Lyra's story in my notebook along with all the other proof I was collecting. I felt like I was slowly standing taller, like I was finding the backbone I had lost. That evening, I dug through old storage boxes until I found my graduation card from Mom. She had written, "No payback needed. Just make us proud." I found gift receipts and birthday cards too, all showing that the college money had been a gift, not a loan. In my desk drawer, I also found copies of checks I had sent my parents after graduation. Some were to help with the mortgage, others were for Dad's medical bills. I had given them money freely, with no expectation of anything in return. I arranged all of this in a folder called Evidence, in chronological order. I went to sleep that night for the first time in weeks feeling peaceful, finally letting my body rest. But the next morning, my doorbell rang again. Another certified letter had arrived. This time it was a summons to small claims court. I held the paper calmly. Some fights come to you whether you want them or not. Some families should come with warning signs. On Thursday, I went to Oren's law office. The conference room smelled like coffee and determination. Papers were spread across the polished oak table like armor, each one a piece of protection. Oren said, "Let's arrange everything in chronological order." We started with the graduation card, then added printed screenshots of messages from my graduation. They all said how proud my parents were of me, with no mention of paying anything back. Oren said, "No reasonable person would expect 40% of your lifetime earnings for a $20,000 check." My phone buzzed. It was Caius. He had posted publicly online, saying that my parents' lawsuit was because of me, not because of any real agreement. "This actually helps us," Oren said. He just admitted the suit is unfair. Soon, messages from friends and coworkers poured in. They said nice things about me and remembered how hard I had worked for college. They saw the real me, not the selfish daughter my parents had made me feel like I was. Warmth spread through my chest, like sunlight on a cold day. Oren smiled. "Your brother's plan backfired," he said. Then I saw an email from my parents. They wrote again about all the sacrifices they had made. Oren said, "Even their own words contradict their legal position. They keep switching between calling it a gift and an investment. That makes them look dishonest." That evening, I looked at the cashier's check on my kitchen table. $26,000, the original $20,000 plus 6 years of interest. Could I give it back and be done? Or should I fight all the way to make them face what they did? The doorbell rang. Eudora came in with a casserole. She saw the check and raised her eyebrows. "That's a lot of money to give to people who don't deserve it," she said. "I might do it for peace," I said. But the words sounded empty, even to my own ears. Eudora patted my hand. "Peace bought with ransom never lasts, dear." Oren called. He was filing a counterclaim for harassment and attempted financial coercion. He said Eudora could testify for me. "Of course," I said. "I've lived long enough to recognize when someone is being bullied, even by people who should love you the most." Then my phone rang. It was Lyra from work. She said she had told HR everything, about the harassment, the phone calls, and the emails. "We've got your back," she said firmly. I sat quietly after the call. I let the realization sink in. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Not for what I could do for anyone else, not for what I could provide, but just for who I was. I felt safe, respected, and proud of myself. I thought about Eudora, about Lyra, and about Oren. They believed in me when I had almost stopped believing in myself. Their kindness and support made me feel strong. I finally understood that family could be chosen, not just born into, and that real friends and allies could help you feel safe when those who should love you try to hurt you. That night, I looked at my notebook filled with evidence, my graduation card, the printed emails, and the checks I had given my parents. I smiled. I knew that no matter what happened next, I was ready. I was no longer small and shaken. I had a plan, I had proof, and I had people who cared about me. I felt steady, strong, and most of all, free. For the first time in a very long time, I felt truly happy. Not because someone praised me or gave me money or expected me to succeed, but because I was finally standing up for myself. I was no longer hiding from the people who tried to control me. I was being myself, and that was enough. My phone rang again. I picked it up, and it was my dad calling. That was strange because he almost never called by himself. Usually, Mom would be on the line too. "Celine," he said when I answered. His voice sounded different than usual. Less sure, like he was worried about something. "Maybe we can talk about this without lawyers," he said quietly. I took a deep breath and said, "I've already made my position clear." I spoke calmly, trying not to show how nervous I felt. There was a long pause. "Your mom is very upset," he said softly. "So am I, Dad," I replied. My voice was steady, even though my heart was beating fast. Later that night, I opened my email and saw a message from Mom. The subject line said simply, "Maybe we can talk." I opened it, and inside she wrote, "Perhaps we can discuss this privately. Just the three of us. Like old times." I stared at the screen for a moment. I thought about it, then forwarded the email to Oren, my lawyer, without saying anything. I didn't want to make any decisions without him. Then I picked up the cashier's check I had been holding on to for weeks. The court date was set for next month. This check wasn't because I owed them money. No, it was my final offer because I wanted freedom, not because of guilt or fear. I sealed it in an envelope and addressed it to their lawyer. Not to them. Never directly to them again. On Wednesday next month, I arrived at the courthouse 2 hours early. I needed time to be quiet and calm before everything began. The polished marble floors reflected the bright morning sunlight. I walked slowly and quietly, practicing what I would say with Oren. He kept reminding me to breathe. "They're here," Oren whispered, nodding toward the entrance. My parents appeared, looking older than when I had last seen them. Dad's hands trembled as he clutched a manila folder. Mom's face looked tired and puffy, and her pearl necklace, the same one she wore at that college dinner years ago, sparkled in the light. They spotted me and immediately walked toward our bench. "Celine, honey," Mom began softly, her voice smooth and practiced. "We need to talk before this goes any further." I stood, gripping my leather portfolio tightly. "I think we've talked enough," I said. My voice felt strong even though my stomach was tight. "We have a compromise," Dad said, his voice unsteady. He pulled papers from his folder. 20% instead of 40. "That's more than fair." "Alaric worked all night on these numbers," Mom added, touching my arm gently. I took a step back. Her eyes narrowed for a second before filling with tears. "We're your parents. This shouldn't be happening," she whispered. Dad leaned closer. "If you go through with this, you'll never be welcome in our home again. Is that what you want? To destroy your family over money?" Oren started to speak, but I raised my hand lightly. "This is my battle," I said. I opened my portfolio and removed the cashier's check I had carried for weeks. $26,000. The original amount plus interest. I held it out between us. "This closes our financial relationship. Permanently." Mom's eyes widened. "This isn't about money. It's about family obligations. I've created a timeline," I continued. My voice was steadier than I felt. "Every card, email, and text where you called that check is a gift. Every time you never asked for repayment. 7 years of silence, then suddenly you demanded 40% of my income for life." Dad reached for the cashier's check, but I pulled it back. "I've already given you more than you gave me. After graduation, I sent money for your anniversary trip to Yellowstone. For the new water heater last winter. For Caius's art supplies." Each example landed like a quiet blow. I helped without being asked because that's what family does. Not this. They exchanged glances, a silent calculation passing between them. "The judge will see things differently," Dad muttered. 30 minutes later, we sat in the wood-paneled courtroom. The air smelled like polished furniture and nervous tension. Judge Selwyn, a woman in her 60s with silver-framed glasses, reviewed our documents carefully. "Let me understand," she said, looking up. "You provided funds for your daughter's education, which you said at the time were gifts, correct?" Mom straightened. "We called it an investment in her future." "I have the card here," I said, sliding it forward. "Congratulations. No payback needed. Just make us proud." The judge examined the card, then looked at my parents. "And 7 years later, you're claiming this was a verbal contract for ongoing payments?" "She understood our expectations," Dad said. Judge Selwyn removed her glasses. "Do you know what gift means legally, Mrs. Vera?" Mom blinked. "It was symbolic. We didn't mean an actual gift. Symbolic gifts don't generally come with retroactive payment plans," the judge said, raising her eyebrows. She studied my timeline carefully, pausing to ask clarifying questions. When she reached the section showing their calls to my workplace, her expression hardened. "I'm dismissing this case," she announced finally. "Furthermore, I'm granting Miss Vera's counterclaim for legal fees in the amount of $3,000, payable within 30 days. Mom gasped. Dad's face flushed crimson. But our daughter, Mom began. She provided substantial evidence that no contract existed, Judge Selwyn interrupted. And she continued to give financial support after graduation, which contradicts your claim of financial hardship. This matter is closed. Outside the courtroom, Caius waited by the water fountain. His expression darkened when he saw me. He wore the leather jacket I bought him last Christmas. Congratulations, he muttered. You'll regret this. Blood doesn't turn its back, he said. I stopped beside him, suddenly tired of fighting. I thought quietly, blood doesn't manipulate. I walked toward the sunlight streaming through the courthouse doors. Orrin followed, offering quiet congratulations. That evening, Eudora brought dinner and sat with me on my balcony. We watched the Seattle skyline glitter as night fell. Have you heard anything? She asked carefully. Only rumors. Their friends are asking questions about the case, I said. Will you ever speak to them again? Her question hung in the evening air. I didn't answer immediately. The truth was I didn't know. Years of silence about repayment, then sudden demands for nearly half my income. How do you rebuild after that? I took the cashier's check from my pocket and tore it into tiny pieces. The fragments fluttered over the balcony railing, carried away by the breeze. Maybe someday, I finally answered, but only on my terms. 6 months later, the morning sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting golden rectangles across my hardwood floors. From the 12th floor apartment, Seattle's skyline stretched before me. It was a vast improvement from my old third-floor view of a parking lot. On my bookshelf, travel photos had replaced family portraits. Me hiking in Olympic National Park. A weekend trip to Vancouver with Lyra. Eudora and I laughing at Pike Place Market. No forced smiles, no posed perfection. Just real, happy moments captured in photographs. My desk held a leather portfolio with financial documents, a 5-year plan for retirement, investment strategies, and a savings account growing steadily each month. The top page had a note from my financial advisor. Excellent progress toward complete independence. I closed the folder with a satisfied smile. This life belonged entirely to me. My laptop chimed with an email notification. I clicked it open and froze. Dear Ms. Vera, we are pleased to inform you of your acceptance to our executive MBA program. 7 years ago, another acceptance letter arrived. I remembered my trembling hands as I showed it to my parents. Back then, their approval seemed more important than my achievement. Today, I forwarded this email to Lyra, Orrin, and Eudora with the subject line, Celebration Dinner Tonight? Within minutes, all 3 responded enthusiastically. Yes. At Canlis Restaurant, overlooking Lake Union, we clinked glasses over a white tablecloth. The setting sun cast rose-gold light across our faces. To Celine, Eudora said, her silver hair catching the light much like my mother's pearls once did. The bravest woman I know. Orrin raised his glass. To boundaries that protect and freedom that heals. Lyra leaned forward. And to investing in yourself, no strings attached. I tasted the champagne, letting the bubbles dissolve on my tongue. I was thankful for the family I chose. Later that evening, I sat cross-legged on my couch, laptop balanced on my knees. I typed the final paragraph of a blog post titled, I paid my way out of my parents' debt trap. The post was anonymous. Names changed. Locations altered. But the story was true. My inbox already contained an invitation from a podcast host who specialized in financial manipulation and family trauma. She found me through Orrin and said my story might help someone else recognize the patterns I went through. My phone buzzed with a notification. A Venmo request from Caius. Hey sis, need $100 for art supplies. We'll pay back as soon as possible. His first contact in 8 months. I paused, thumb hovering over the pay button. Instead, I tapped his profile and chose block user. A quiet smile formed as I returned to my laptop and deleted Venmo completely. I wondered quietly if true freedom came from cutting ties completely or from building boundaries strong enough that no one could cross them without permission. I didn't know the perfect answer. But as I clicked publish on my story, I knew one thing for sure. My life was finally completely my own.